Thank you. All right, let's call the meeting for October 8th, 2019 of the Planning and Zoning Commission and Local Planning Agency back to order. And we'll start with an invocation and the pledge. So we'll have the pledge done by Member Wunderlich tonight. And if everybody please rise. Heavenly Father, we ask that you give us the wisdom to make the good decisions for our city. We ask blessing on all of our staff as they prepare all these items for us and for the general public. Keep them well, keep them strong in their jobs. We ask a blessing on our first responders, keep them safe as they keep us safe. And as always, Lord, we ask a blessing on our military. Wherever they are in the world, keep them safe and bring them home to us. We ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. And with that, roll call, Madam Chair, Madam Clerk, if we can get a call and see if we've got a quorum.
Chair Keller.
Present.
Vice Chair Williams.
Present.
Member Lomnick.
Present.
Member Mellon.
Present.
Member Wunderlich.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. All right, we don't have any old business, so we'll move to the consent. Well, actually, the consent agenda comes before the old business. We'll go to the consent agenda, and we need a motion to approve the minutes of the September 10th meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting on September 10th, 2019, as presented by staff.
All right, and do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Vice Chair Williams, a second by Member Mellon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. With that, we'll come to our first item of the evening, and that is a public hearing on the DACA property at 8807 Hackney Prairie Road. And for that, we will have Planner Gregory Hines.
Good evening, Gregory Hines. I'm Planner 1. The first property we have coming up is the DACA property located at 8807 Hackney Perry Road. They're proposing to annex into the city of Ocoee. The property is located north of Hackney Perry Road and is located in between Clark Road and Apocalypse Island Road. And right next to the property is Hackney Perry Elementary School. And this is where the property is located. This here is the aerial map, and right here is the Hackney Perry Elementary School. Right now, the property currently has a single-family home. It's actually two separate parcels. There's a parcel that's about an acre, and then there's another one that's about 1.10 acres. So in total, it's 2.13 acres. And it's owned by the same property owner, so it's going to be annexed on all of this property here. It's eligible for annexation because directly north of it and south and also to the east, it touches the city of Ocoee. We actually recently just annexed this property. That was the property that the city owned, so it is eligible to be annexed. And currently, this is just the surrounding zoning. We're gonna, when the annexing, currently is A1, which is general agriculture for Orange County. We're gonna rezone this to R1A, which is single family residential, because it will be more in line with the surrounding area. As you can see here on the map, all the surrounding parcels are R1A, so we're just gonna keep it uniform with that. And then also just with the future land use map, you could also see for the future land use map, all that area is on low density residential. So that's just keeping in line with that. And also because we don't have the agriculture zone in here. So also with this property annexing into the city, they're annexing to get city benefit. And also eventually they're gonna get a water connection. So that's why they wanna annex into the city. And just looking at the property value of this property, Right now, it was valued at $629,000. So just in property taxes alone, it will bring just under $3,500 into the city a year. And if you have any question, I can answer those regarding the annexation and rezoning.
Any questions from the board before we open the public hearing? All right, seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Get any comments from citizens?
Is the applicant present? Is the applicant present?
No, he isn't.
Okay. All right, seeing no comments, I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the dais. I do have one question before I go, and it was just a curiosity question more than anything else. I noticed in there that it said the closest water was West Avenue. Am I just thinking of the wrong west, or is that really the closest water connection? Because it says location and size of nearest water main was 6-inch water main on West Avenue. Where is?
I know.
Is that?
Yes, that was probably my fault. I know the water line, there's a water line crosses right
Yeah, that's.
here. So it's really, it's within it's not in front of the property, it's really close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's what I thought, but I just,
Yeah.
when it
So-
was West Avenue, it's like, okay, I was
Yeah, no, I
expecting
meant
you to tell me Hackney
Say
Ferry
west of
Road.
the- Yeah, west of the property. What
Okay.
had happened is this property was purchased by a business owner in the
Yeah.
city of Ocoee
Yep.
as an investment property. Got someone to move in and the well failed.
Mhm.
Due to the distance, the design needed, we could not provide water to this property for more than 45 days and someone's living in it.
Yeah.
So they went ahead and fixed the well, and then we're just doing a progressive design, and they're gonna
Okay.
connect the water. But it's west of it is what I'm.
Okay, yeah, because I was looking at West Avenue, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense to me. All right, thank you. That was-
I thought it was referring to one of
Yeah,
the inside.
all right. No other questions? Let's see, two motions are necessary on this one. The first one would be a motion for the approval of the annexation of the property located 8807 Hackney Prairie Road. And then the second one would be a rezoning one. So can I get a motion to approval of the annexation?
I'll make that motion. I make a motion to recommend approval of the DACA property, 8807 Hackney Prairie Road, to annex it, project number AX091985.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion by Member Mellon, a second by Member Lomneck. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? All right. And then I need a rezoning so that we can rezone it to the R1A, the single family.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to, on property 8807 Hackney Prairie Road, the DACA property, that we approve the rezoning, project number RZ190911.
All right, and do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Member Lomnick, a second by Vice Chair Williams. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, welcome. Well, I can't exactly say welcome to the neighborhood quite yet. We got to wait for the commission to approve it, but we'll send it on to. All right, and I know we had one, I was asked if we could change the order slightly here. So instead of doing the signs first, they wanted to do the residential fencing first.
Okay.
So we're going to do as Mr. Rummer would ask, and we'll change it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the LDC amendment concerning residential fencing, and this will be Keel Gadget. Sorry, I killed it again. I apologize.
You got it right.
But Keel, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, good evening, Commission. Heel Gajadar, zoning manager for the record. The item in front of you is in regards to amending our land development code for residential fencing. Currently, we have requirements for the fencing located in both Article 5, Section 5.4, as well as 5.4.1. This has caused some confusion and issues with residents or homeowners and fencing contractors. So our current fencing policy for the rear of the property is to have fencing at 6 inches, up to 6 inches, 6 feet high. And to the front of the property, you can go all the way up to the property line, up to 4 feet high, but 4 feet has to be see-through. Currently, to simplify that process, we are trying to change the LDC to have everything regarding residential fencing in one section, which we do. Section 5.4 is for open space requirements, which is where some of the fencing requirements are. 5.4.1 is where we specifically talk about fencing. So we're looking to change that and move everything over to fencing. As a demonstration, as you can see here, this is our open space requirements in section 5.4. There is some language in here about fencing. And then 5.4.1 is our actual fencing section. So the crossouts really is being moved over to the fencing section. Nothing's being removed from the code, it's just being moved to fencing. We're also requiring a 50% opacity in the 4 feet fence. Policy currently and in the past is that we require that they have that opacity for the 4 feet fence, but it's not in the code. So we're gonna go ahead and add that in there as well, which is listed in the fencing section. We're also gonna add a 2-inch variable setback to the fencing. So we've had issues where sometimes a fence would be put up on the property line. However, depending on the type of fence, it overlaps into the other property, which can cause some issues between the neighbors, things like that. So to facilitate that, we're adding into the code, or asking that we add this into the code to just facilitate that 2-inch setback, depending on the type of fence, so that we could eliminate that issue. And the Development Review Committee voted unanimously to approve these changes, and staff also recommends that we do approve these changes because we think and feel that it'll simplify the process for applicants in regards to looking up the code and what needs to be done for fences. And I'll entertain any questions on that.
All right, before we open it to the public hearing, any questions from the dais?
Are there any provisions for an owner to seek an exemption or modification?
Yes, they would still go through the typical variance process, should they need to make any changes to that.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question about the 2-inch, I'm trying to find it now, the 2-inch variable setback. That's not 2 inches on each side. Is that what you mean by variable?
2 inches into, so the homeowner that's putting the fence up, 2 inches into their property. So that way it facilitates in case that, depending on the type of fence, you know, some beams are larger than others, some poles are larger, and they tend to overlap into the other adjacent property. So it's 2 feet into the property line.
So I guess I'm a little confused how that may solve the problem, because if they put the fence, and maybe I'm just thinking out loud, so I may conclude my own question, but if they put the fence 2 inches into their property, they will feel as if they're losing property, and their neighbor is gaining if they choose not to put up a fence. If their neighbor puts up a fence, then that same 2-inch variable is going to required with them, and then there's going to be 4 inches in between, and that
The
make a
language,
problem.
the language they're replacing in there says variable up to 2 inches.
Uh-huh.
I believe that we would look at that on a case-by-case basis, you know,
Okay,
depending on the fence.
okay,
So we would, you know, each fence is different, so we're
Right.
just putting that in there to be proactive to the issue.
okay,
'Cause currently, we don't have anything speaking in regards to that, so
yeah.
there are issues now and from in the past where these fences are overlapping into other neighbors, and they are taking over some extra property.
Yeah, it's giving me what is that, little flashbacks of my time on my homeowners association with fencing. So that's when I read that, I thought, oh, no.
Yeah, we spoke with our building department, and it'll be on a case-by-case, depending on which type of fence they're putting up.
Okay,
Now, would this affect shared fencing? Let's say you have 2 houses back to back, that it's a common fence at one homeowner as opposed to another, you know, are you gonna have to leave a 2-inch gap?
Yes, so the fencing types have changed. You have shadow box, you have the PVC fence, and also how the fence companies are installing them in between the beams on the outside of beams. There's no perfect way to write the language, so we wrote it for this variable to keep the fence from hanging over to the other property. What you can do, though, is if you want to tie into the neighbor's fence, they just have to sign on the application for the fence permit. It's a joint fence permit. That can get you around that. So, yes. But there is some cases where a fence, the way it's installed, might be up to 4 inches on the inside, and the other person's not gonna be able to use their neighbor's fence anymore. If they can get along, they can sign a joint application and run it and connect. And we'll have that permit on file to show that they're not, that's why the fence is kind of over the property line. You probably know this best. How wide is a property line? Is it a string? Is it how wide? I've always been kind of told it's the surveyors, you can put a hat on it, it's within that area. So really, 2 inches, it's not, in the scheme of things, that much. Really what the inspector is gonna do is run a tape. Really look the width of the tape and just say, hey, we generally always just said, I would put it like 4 inches off, just to make things happy, but the building official really came and stepped up and said, look, you can go up to 2 inches. Most of them will fit. We just have some shadow box. We have some, these panels are wider and they have decorations on both sides. They're hanging over, we're having issues. So the variable's up to 2 inches. Some, we might say, hey, you need to go 4 inches off. Generally it'll be 2. But if they do want to connect to your original question 20 minutes ago, we just get them to sign on the application.
Gotcha, thank you.
And I'm going to add one more comment in on that, because I had a question on that. That was the only thing that I had highlighted on mine was the 2-inch setback. 2-inch setback on both sides is 4 inches. I can't get a lawnmower in there. Problem I see is high grass, snakes, and mice. What do we, I would prefer you to actually pull it back so that someone could get something back there, whether it's a weed eater or a lawnmower, to be able to actually clear that area, because I see it coming down the road that, hey, they're not, no one's taking care of this, and these two people have fences, and now I'm getting snakes in my backyard, the next house over, and I don't have a fence, but it's because this is a breeding ground for snakes and mice. And
I understand what you're saying, but that will create more issues by requiring fences to be a foot off the property line, because then you have access. Today, there's no requirement. So today, people can put them wherever they want. Generally, it's on the property line. Then you have another property that wants a different type fence. We're seeing more of these upgraded type fences, even chain link that's painted black.
Yeah.
We don't see green for some reason, but they're, and so it's something that is going to evolve. And what's nice about having a code like this and not just a form-based code is we can come back and it's just 2 readings on an ordinance, 2 public hearings, and kind of amend it. We think this is the best way to kind of handle what we're seeing a lot of right now with issues. And we're comfortable, there's no requirement now.
Yeah.
So you can be on the line, your neighbor can be 4 inches off, you still have that issue. You're really not going to have it as much as you think.
Yeah, well,
You're only talking 2 inches anyway, right? So.
yeah, well, 2 inches and 2 inches, 4 inches of high grass.
Right.
Just, see what we'll
Right.
see what happens.
We have nothing to point now.
Yeah,
To
right.
say
You have,
put it
yeah,
on
you
the
have,
property line.
it's definitely better than what you have, but
Yeah.
I would, at least in the back of your mind, consider if you're going to see a question, that's what it's going to be about.
Yes, and you'll see in my next presentation, this is all still fluid, because we're getting a more educated populace, not only the type of people moving to Ocoee, but people that have been in HOAs for a while. They've been burned, they're moving to a new HOA. We're getting a lot of different fence types, we're getting a lot of issues, and it's nice to have new staff, Because before, because I've been here 13 plus years, I could just say, hey, the policy is you want a fence in the front yard, you gotta be see-through.
Mhm.
Well, that's not what the code said. The code said that site triangle on the corner lot must be see-through.
Right.
It takes the new eyes looking at it, say, where in the code does it say the 4-foot fence has to be see-through? And I was like, couldn't find it. So we're adding, these type of issues are gonna come up and we'll discuss and we can evaluate. Again, two reading of an ordinance, come back in front of you and say, yes, Commissioner Keller was right. But right now, there's nothing.
All right, I do appreciate it, thank you.
I do believe the 2-inch as well would help in regards to issues that come up with neighbors. Currently, there is no type of
Yeah.
resolution for that as far as, so.
Oh, yeah, I've seen homeowner issues with that, and hey, they're, putting cuttings on my yard. So I do think it's needed. Like I said, I just would have got a little bit more, but that's, hey, at least it's a start, so we're moving in the right direction. All right, with that, I am going to open the public hearing, because this also is a public hearing. So for anybody from the audience or residents who want to comment, we'll open it up for that. Seeing none, we are going to close the public hearing and bring it back here. There's only one motion necessary for this, and that would be motion to approve the revisions of the Land Development Code relating to and adding an alternate, wrong one, reading the wrong one, sorry. A motion to approval for the revisions of the Land Development Code relating to residential fencing.
I'll make that motion. I make a motion to recommend approval of the LDC amendment over fencing.
Okay, is there a second? Second. All right, we have a motion by Member Mellon, a second by Member Lomnick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Carried. Okay. With that, we're going to go back to B now, which is the LDC amendment concerning commercial and industrial signage standards for the Land Development Code Amendment. And for this, we will turn it over to Development Services Director Romer.
Yes, and with this past one, the second, typically, what happens after this is the following month, and so November, the first meeting in November, we would do the first reading of ordinance with the Land Development Code changes in the ordinance. Second reading, the second meeting in November. The commission has canceled the second meeting in November, so we're going to process this in December. First reading, second reading. So with the fences, with my items I'm talking about, it's not going to go to a second public hearing for a while. This is certainly not the last time you can talk to us. I'm going to be talking about signs. If you see a sign, if you go back and read it here in the next month, and just feel free. This is something that you can continue to talk to us about. We're kind of getting you today to really approve recommending the concept, the where we're going. So I'm going to show you the signs sort of have two issues. Issue number one is we have an Article 8 that has signage. And then we adopted a special overlay over Highway 50 years ago. And we liked it so much we adopted it code-wide. We adopted it in Article 6. I didn't put the text up. We adopted the Highway 50 overlay citywide in Article 6-14, commercial and industrial signage. The problem is when you go to where we keep our code on a program called Unicode, a website, when you type in Ocoee signs, it takes you to Article 8, which has commercial sign criteria. But really, you need to be in Article 6, Section 614. So one thing we're doing is removing that signage out of Article 614 into Article 8. Second, we have we have our downtown master plan. We have a number of overlays. Those are creating a dense urban development, which is different type of signage than a suburban code. We're going to keep our current code requirements and move them to Article 8. That's for the properties that are not in downtown, not in one of our overlays, not in a care. So anything along Highway 50 that's not in a specific target area will meet the regular sign code that we're moving back into Article 8. This gives the sign companies fits. They're all, because they do their due diligence, submit a permit, and it's wrong. What we are proposing is an exhaustive amount of code requirements to facilitate signage in our downtown and our overlays, which tries to get to how you implement urban signage, which doesn't meet a suburban standard. For instance, we allow one wall sign on a regular commercial building. Unless you're on a corner lot, you can have a second on that street front. But under an urban development, the building's up front, the parking's in the back. So they need signage not only along the road, but they also need some signage in the back over the parking lot so you know which building to walk into. You have sign criteria for creating blades, and more in your historic and your downtown core. You have window signs. The ability, in our suburban code, we don't allow menu signs. But in a downtown with downtown cafes, you want the ability to have a menu sign out to know what the special of the day is or something like that. So I'm not going to go text by text what we're trying to accomplish. This is what this change means. It's adaptive, it's fluid. One way that cities accomplish this is by adopting a form-based code. If we did a form-based code, it's going to be a 9-month process, $300,000. We're going to spend all of that money and time, workshops, meeting with yous to say, now we're starting to get these buildings in and it's not working out like we want it to. We're putting the provisions that we think will facilitate, and at least there's a code requirement to have that discussion on what your signage needs to be. We may come back and say we need to modify, and again, it's easier to modify Article 8, Section 3.4, number A, we're finding that this blade sign is not going to work, than to go through a form-based code and do a wholesale changes. So I encourage you to look at those. They may seem extreme, and they might not work. Some of the overlays in downtowns allow for some administrative variance. We're not going to allow big, long, tall lettered signs. It may be the way the blade sign works. It's going to allow this menu sign out during business hours, but not be left out all night. It's going to talk about the shape. How are these blade signs going to hang off the wall? We might come up with a standard color package, we may not. We're not getting those developments yet, but as we get them, if we don't have something, they're going to try to get the biggest wall sign they can, and it's not appropriate. So with this item, as I go back to Keels on fences, if you see something you like, if you see a better way to do it, please, you have plenty of time. We have an urban designer on staff that has lived in really nice downtowns. He has designed buildings in our downtown based off of the criteria, and some of that is the signage. So we've kind of gone through some of these exercises. We know they will work, but we don't want to be really strict. You know, we're not downtown San Francisco or New York City. We're Ocoee. We're not other places. We want to direct people to say these are the kind of signs you can have. Depending on how big of the block you develop, what space, meet this or come close. And then as we see those, hey, we're coming close, but it's not this particular code exactly, we can come back and amend it. And then as our city matures in its urban development, then it'll be time to do a form-based code. And we're doing it with a downtown that's 10 years old, that's vibrant. Target areas that are really vibrant. Character areas along the 429, hey, we've got some undeveloped, we've got some redevelopment. We want it to look exactly like this. We didn't want to put the line in the sand and say, it's got to be this in a form-based code. We wanted to just provide code requirements that you can receive a variance, you can receive some administrative variances, you start to get a sense of what's going on, and so that's, entertain any questions.
So my first question that as I was reading it, at first I got that you're putting it all in one place so that there's some certainty for those who are trying to develop and install based on the code. But I'm a little concerned as I got into the particulars that that certainty was kind of muddied a little bit. Because I know that there are instances where there may be, there's flexibility. You're trying to build in flexibility, but it also creates a little bit of uncertainty there. So I think I just want, I'll read it again
So-
now that I've heard your comments, but
The
that's,
easiest example is a wall sign. And I'll explain it on our normal, non-downtown. So your wall signage is, there's a maximum of 36 square feet, and the height is 3 feet. And think of a strip unit. But you're limited to 1 square foot per lineal feet of frontage of your unit. Your unit may be 20 feet wide. The correct proportionate sign should be 20 square feet. Now, that's what the code says. Then sometimes we'll have a little artistic detail, and
Lady Bird account.
you might make it, you might allow 22 square feet. We really can't go much without bringing a variance for it. But in the downtown, it depends on the architecture of the building, that how's the sign gonna fit? And it may be a case where you've got to go with one of these blades, but maybe the sign can be taller but not as wide because of the architectural detail. We don't want to limit architectural details so they can fit a sign. We want to make the sign so it looks appropriate. And there's a lot of ways to cut that, to get to that point. It's not, we're such in our infancy to really go out and spend a lot of time and tell people we're not sure. We think we've got a fair code that works, but certainly, yes.
so this relates back to our last meeting with the building, the,
Yes.
what is it called? Yeah, Lady Bird, yeah, okay. And then the other question that I had, and this may just be me being a little bit confused here. Ginger, Ms. Corliss came with, I can't think of the planner's name.
Peter?
Yes.
Yes.
Who talked about some changes that they were making, but that was just solely in the CRA, and does that include signage as well?
So they're not doing any changes land development code wise in the CRA.
Okay. I just
They
wanted to make
are-
sure that I
yes,
hadn't misunderstood that.
Their projects are using the funds that are generated with the tax increment and using them to better the CRA.
Okay.
In the CRA, the community redevelopment area, we have 3 target areas. On the corner of 50 and McGuire, that target area has an ordinance which is it has extra zoning requirements. And it says refer to the book for more. Target area 2 the same way, which is 50 in Blueford. Target area 3 is the hospital. We just did a master plan. We couldn't put zoning layers on top of them. He's working on, and this is some of those elements of helping to codify some of what they say in our code. So you don't have to go to this separate booklet. But a majority of what they're doing is you're going to see, if you go to Clark Road, a portion of Clark Road above 50 is in the CRA. You're seeing they're going to re-landscape those islands right now. They're doing maintenance of traffic, removing trees. They're doing plans for upgrading landscaping,
Okay.
wayfinding, but not
Code.
what they're doing is not code related. Only in the sense that Peter is my guy as well for this. He's our
Okay.
urban designer, so.
I think
I'm
that's
gonna
where my
show you
confusion was
if I
coming.
can
'Cause
find- if I can find real quick. So you've got. No, looking for, it's not here. But in the downtown, you have buildings that have a little courtyard in the front, and the building, that signage is different than the building that's right up on the sidewalk. We don't know, I haven't been the planner in a really nice urban downtown, and I don't feel comfortable really stating through a form-based code, this is how it needs to be. Let's just have some criteria so they know there's criteria, and let's react to it, make it look appropriate. The good thing is I have an urban designer that has designed downtowns. He'll look at it first. We'll look at it and see if it works, so.
Okay.
Okay, additional questions?
No, I just noticed that section 8.4 has prohibited signs called out twice, and they're both different.
I haven't decided how I want to, how I want to do it. The section 614 has prohibited signs, Article 8 has prohibited signs. It's going to be both of those if they don't mix. I just haven't decided how we're going to, I want to do prohibited signs, but I want to make it less prohibited. I want to say these signs do not cultivate the sense, and so therefore, unless there's an extreme, because you can get, we had issues, and Commissioner Keller was a part where the downturn of the economy, we kind of relaxed our sign, we allowed 2 grand openings or 2 re-grand openings that allowed you to do blade signs and signs that are not allowed. So I'm going to kind of word that into unless market conditions, but you're right, there's 2 sections.
There are, yeah, and it's confusing. It's like the neon, it talks about, it's not permitted as an adornment on any building, and then on the next page, it's like, sure, you can put neon inside, so.
Yes, and you saw that in, the tough part is getting it in ordinance form, and that's Dana's gonna have. So when she starts putting it in ordinance form, it'll really shake out, and I wanna have good preface to it, because our code is going to that urban form-based, but we're not there yet. So I just want people to see that at Ocoee, we embrace development. We have some standards, and there's standards for a reason, just not prohibited. That's just prohibited. No, not.
Additional questions?
Yeah, I got one more question, since this isn't, obviously this isn't its final form yet. What exactly, are we just reading it today? Because it doesn't appear we can really do a vote or a recommendation on an unfinished.
You can, you've reviewed it. You can say you recommend going forward as it is. You can continue it and say, I want to do more review. You can.
Just seems like we got to get, it in a form in which it needs to be.
We don't bring ordinances, the final ordinance form to this board, but.
You still have to do a public hearing and all that, so
Yes.
you'll make some changes there.
Yes.
It's just
Yes.
giving you enough language to move forward to that next step.
Yes, the language is going to be adopted as it is. How it's, in the sections will be adopted as it is, yes.
Okay.
Is there
But I see what you're saying, you don't want to approve, well, there's 2.
Well, I don't want to approve something that, you're telling us that you're going to, well, we got to go and fix that, we're going to redo it and everything, and then we sit there and say, yeah, we're going to approve it as it is. Y'all can literally, it's fine, we're going to leave it just the way it is, and then it will never get fixed, and we're still going to have 2 neon sign areas that clash. And so hence why, if everything's kind of organized correctly.
I'll send you the ordinance before, when it goes to first reading, and so you can see how it shakes out.
Gotcha.
And that's why I say it's not rushed, so you've got until December to look at it and say, hey, you really, still, have an issue here.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional question? Because I got a boatload of them, unfortunately. I think most of them are probably going to be more in the way of Scribner errors than anything else type thing, but I just want to make sure that's what they are.
Okay.
First one, the obvious one, there's nothing underlined. The direction said, hey, we're going to cross out everything that's we're getting rid of, and we're going to underline everything that's new. And obviously, there's nothing new because there's nothing underlined. So we probably need to go back and underline most, if not all of this.
Yeah, all of 8, the beginning part of 8.4, yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so that was sort of the first thing there. Then under prohibited signs, AI, or I guess that's, or maybe that's Roman numeral 1, but it says flashing signs and 6199 is R, prohibited. So is there supposed to be something else?
That's funny, that's, I don't know what that,
Yeah,
you can tell it's covering up a word, yes.
Yeah, it's like, what else, flashing signs and what? And and I guess we need to choose is or are for that, depending on if there's more than one, that probably should be R prohibited. But, so I had a question there, like, what am I missing? Let's see, next page I was pretty happy with. Next page is, let's see, general guidelines under the administration piece. Max of one sign per facade which faces a street, or parking area. So I'm assuming one of the streets probably needs to go away. I'm taking it that where it says combination of City of Charleston or City of Ocala or City of Orlando, that's just for us. That's just,
That's my urban designer's
yep.
referencing where.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's just for reference, that's not gonna be part of the code.
That's not-
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for you quick.
Yeah.
Would it be all right to say then, let's table this till next meeting and let the planner sharpen his pencil?
That's up to the board. I don't have problems, since they're not gonna bring it up before December.
That section is moving signs.
Yeah, that's, yeah, we could probably do that. I probably need to sit down with you, because like I said, I got a bunch of
Let me
others.
see, I expect.
Yeah, we hate to be your like 8th grade English teacher, but I mean,
Yeah, well, my thing is, and yeah, part of it is being the English teacher with the street, because I want to make sure it gets straightened out before it is, but like the neon signs, it says, however, up to 2 neon signs are permitted per business as mentioned above, but I didn't see anything above where it was
Above, right.
mentioned. So it's like, and I thought I had only seen one elsewhere, so whether 1 or 2 neon signs under number 10, under those general guidelines of neon.
That's in the prohibited section?
No, that's
it's
under
under
general
general. That
guidelines under
was
the
the-
administration section.
That's in that's in Article 8. Article 614, commercial and industrial, it's prohibited.
Yeah.
That's where that was part of that 50 overlay.
Yeah, so
Well, tell me, what do you think about neon signs?
I like them. I don't have a problem with them. Inside, I don't really like them all flashy outside personally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
yeah, I was gonna say, I'm
I don't wanna-
not a big fan of the neon signs, but,
That's really what you see now is those open signs.
Yeah, the open signs. What about that the LED lighting inside the windows? Is that part of signage?
That is, yes, that is prohibited.
Prohibited.
It considers it part of signage, and it would take up their whole wall sign, because the window's bigger than the,
Good.
so,
Well, they put those LED strips.
yes, that's a code enforcement, just chases them around the city, yes.
Same with the LED scrolling boards that they.
With those are prohibited. There's only one in the city, and it's on the middle school down the road, and that's autonomous property.
yeah, we
We do
told
allow,
them no on that originally.
we do allow the gas stations to have a changing, it can't scroll a message, it can just change the number,
Yeah.
from
Yeah, for the pricing.
350 to 360.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going down to 125.
Well, we know Clark Road likes our flapping banner flags that are lined up, peppered all the way down from
From the
50
bottom
all the
up.
way to 80 mims. Yeah.
All right, so, let's see, where are we? We're in October, so we would have a November meeting before the
And
2
I'm
December
pretty sure
meetings.
we're
you
going to
would
have a November meeting. I'm going to have Ocoee Village Center will be coming back through for amendment to their plan. So we will have a November meeting. That's good.
All
Yeah,
right,
I like
so, yeah, if you want to,
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem making a motion to accept this right now if you're gonna make the changes, in December, but if not, I mean, if you wanna take another pass at it, we'll table it till.
that. Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on to table the LDC amendment for signage standards.
And I'll second it.
all
I
right.
think we need to say continue.
Table
I
it to
would-
November.
I would-
Tabling it or
I would go
deferring?
ahead and open the public hearing, see if anyone's here to speak to the item tonight, and then when you close the public hearing, then yes, you would make a motion to continue the item until the next meeting,
Okay.
which will be November 12th.
All right, so, on the recommendation, let's open the public hearing. Is there anybody with any questions or wishes to speak to it? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing.
I continue my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Then we have a motion to continue until the next meeting, and we, by member Lomnick, we had a second by member Mellon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, and that carries. So that moves us to the last one, which is the LDC amendment concerning alternate board members.
This is Planning and Zoning Commission is described in the Land Development Code, and although this is not a development item, reducing parking spaces, or this is an item where the history, I've told you before, at one time we had 7 members and 2 alternates, and then they made the 2 alternates full members. We had 9 members. We revised the commission, and as staff, we liked the idea of having 5, not having an alternate was what we proposed, and that got adopted. There's just been seen a need to potentially come up with some sort of an alternate process. And it stemmed from other boards. They were looking at maybe just having an alternate that's set by the mayor, and he can be an alternate on different boards or different quasi-judicial boards if needed. And so we looked and said, well, what about this? Let's make the alternate. And we had 2 good members proposed for this Planning and Zoning Commission, and said, well, let's look at an alternate that maybe has more power than what has been. And they'll know coming in that they're expected to attend meetings. They might not get to be able to vote, but they'll get to be able to have their say. And that's big. So what we're proposing is this alternate member that will be required, responsible to attend meetings. They can join in the discussion. If we have a full quorum, they will not be able to vote. If for some reason someone has a conflict that is registered through the clerk, you could still attend the meeting, you wouldn't be able to vote. This person could vote and keep even though you have a quorum, could still keep a 5 or 3, that vote in place. And then obviously there would be somebody that would be expected to attend meetings. So if we did you have a reason to miss surgery or something, we're kind of covered. And it's just one alternate. As we made yours tried to make it a more serious, confined board to make your vote and your discussion count. This alternate the same way. Instead of having 2 alternates, 3, we did 1, and they're going to attend the meeting. And that, if this goes through, that member has already been decided, voted on from the commission.
Mr. Rumor, it references the selection of 6 people for the commission, one of which is an alternate. Who makes the determination of which of the 6 people is the alternate?
The process for election of members it's made through a vote, so that is made. We will, as part of this ordinance, have the alternate, I don't recall.
I think where the question is going is it really doesn't say here, just as the highest ranked 6 nominees will comprise 5-member planning and zoning and 1 alternate. So it isn't saying that the 5 highest will now be on the board and then the 6th one becomes the alternate. It just says, okay, this top 6, and out of the 6 we'll pick 5 and you're the board. So I think the question that's being asked is, how is that 5 being determined? I think you probably need to change the wording just a little bit so that it says the top 5 vote getters will be the board members, the 6.
Well, the 5 have been established, so now it's on unless everyone quits at once, it's on a 1-position basis.
So,
he'll be actually, this new member, he or she will be nominated and selected by the commission as the alternate. And so the members remain the members, and that person will be the alternate. And in the future, that would be how it would be done as well. They would select 5 members and they would have to designate, the way this is written, they'd have to designate the alternate. You are the alternate, Mr. Smith, and the 5 members are as such.
I did not see in there a procedure or a sequence of events that would identify that, okay, we got 5 sheep and there's the goat.
Well, that's spelled out in the other, where the board nomination part, that's spelled out there. in a different part of the city code.
I'm not sure that it
I
is.
don't
Don't
think
know
it
that it
is in the
is.
code. I believe,
No.
didn't they did they decided the
The
process they
ordinance
wanted
for
to
the new
do.
commission
Yeah.
established the ranking, how it's the 5 highest and how we fill a vacant position.
Right, but now that you've got a sixth, now all you're saying is the sixth highest will make up the board and an alternate. But, and granted, you probably won't see another process where we have to appoint the entire board all at the
Right,
same time again. But should something like that happen, how do you do it? Yeah, I know it's probably a rare question, but if
Well,
you
we
had,
could-
if you had this based on, if you had this wording
Yeah.
based on when you appointed the 6 of
Right,
us,
I hear you, yeah, I
you'd
understand.
have, basically, the board could have said, okay, well, now that we've got these 6, well, think we want you as the alternate, not as, okay, this was the,
Alternate
So maybe
seat.
the way it would read is the highest ranked 6 nominees will comprise the 5-member Planning and Zoning Commission, and 1 will be appointed as the alternate member.
well,
By whom?
And then by the city commission when they
Thank you.
select the
okay.
planning and
Yeah,
zoning.
either that or just come out and say the highest ranked 5 will comprise the 5-member Planning and Zoning. The 6th highest will be the alternate member, which is sort of where I would like to go with it, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think that's cleaner. The other thing I wanted to clarify is the seats that we occupy now, they're considered
Term
the
seats.
5 seats, the term seats. So there's no need to clarify that here, right? Or should we clarify that?
It's for the, like Commissioner Keller was saying, it's for if there ever does come a day when all 6 have to be appointed at the same time.
Okay.
Because, yeah, if someone were to resign, then the commission's going to appoint a new P and Z member.
Right.
And then if the alternate resigns, presumably, they'll appoint a new alternate member.
Okay.
You know, as they appoint down the road single members, they'll appoint them for a specific position, and maybe someone will resign, and then the alternate will say, hey, I want to be on the P and Z, and they'll move him in and bring in a new alternate. But this, what we're trying to clarify, if I understand you all correctly, is just for that event where there's 6 all
Everybody
appointed
will
at
start
once.
Because
Yeah.
in theory, and I know it doesn't happen very often because most people get reappointed, but in theory, what is it, 2 terms now? 2 3-year terms? So if you've got 2 3-year terms, that means 3 of you are leaving all at the same time. You know, so the fact of there being more than one
one that
being
you-
appointed at a
yes.
time, which has always been, or
Yes.
most of the time has been the case in the past, may not exist as much anymore now if people term out and now you're appointing 3 or 4 members at a time.
Because you would have, in that case, the alternate would take 1, presumably. Then you have 2, but you could have 3 people. You could
Right.
still need that alternate.
Yeah,
So
you
out of
still
the
need that
3,
alternate,
it's
so
the-
who,
They'll always
it's
have to
the-
be
yeah,
designated.
so I
as an
think if you
alternate.
go with, like I said, the highest ranked 5 nominees will comprise the 5-member Planning and Zoning, and the 6th highest ranked
Right.
will be the alternate member. I think
Because, and yes.
you're now clearer.
Because you may have there may be 3 people, the third person didn't get any votes.
Right.
But he's the lowest scored.
Right.
So he automatically makes the alternate.
Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah.
Yes, good,
So,
good
all
comments.
right.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's,
we'll-
we can definitely make that revision.
Okay.
One last question. If my term ends, can I come back and be appointed as an alternate?
You would be throwing your name in the hat to not be
Not
See,
to
the
be,
alternate-
not
the
to be a
alternate-
seated,
yeah.
because,
I don't know.
yeah,
Once
because
you
you're,
term out, you're termed out, and you'd have to sit out and then go in with
Oh,
the next,
yeah, your term.
the
right.
next batch. I don't think it's gonna matter if you're an alternate
Then
or
it-
regular member.
okay.
I think in that regard, you would have to sit out at least a period of time. and then be reappointed.
Well, there's not a term, I mean, there's a term limit, but there's not a term limit, right? They put it in the consent agenda to reapprove you.
Well, yes, this time they actually, when they created the ordinance, it was, you can only serve at max of 2 terms. I think because they were doing it odd and even, one got slightly more time than the others. Like, there was a 3 and a 2 or something like that.
We got 3 with 3-year terms, and 2 of us have a 2-year term.
Right, and the 2-year terms had
They can
an
run-
additional, could be reappointed one more additional
Correct.
time.
3 times.
Because they were short 1 year in the original. But yeah, but you do now actually have a term limit on this board, so that the board will flip. It won't just sit here.
Does it talk about the amount of time that you have to sit out before you can be reelected again?
There is no,
There is none, but as long as you've sat out one term, you sat out, and you'd be able to, it'd be almost like if you were running for the office, as long as it says you can only run 2 years, 2 terms in a row, and then you'd have to sit out, and then once you sat out one term, you'd be able to run again, so. Yeah, you would be able to come back, it's just, you'd have to wait out at least a term, if you will.
Yeah. Tonight's the first night I didn't bring that ordinance since we
Yeah.
revised it, but I can grab the unit table.
That's okay.
Let's see, that was at least that was the only comment I had. But additional comments, I know, because I know I had that comment too. That was just one of the, all right. So, do we make,
Make a motion.
Public hearing.
okay, we have to do the public hearing. Okay, let me do the public hearing part first, and then I'll come back and ask my question on the motion, because I'm assuming we're going to have to change the wording if we want to change what it says here. But,
And this is not specific to like a site plan where you want to, you're just saying you can be more general, you want to make sure that the alternate,
right,
you don't have to come up and agree on the language
yeah.
per se.
Well, well, let me open the public hearing, we'll come back on that. All right, so at this point, let's open the public hearing on the planning and zoning alternate member. Are there anybody from the audience? No, you're shaking your head no, so okay. All right, so we'll close the public hearing, bring it back. What my question was gonna be, so should I, if anyone agrees with my thoughts there, should the motion then say that the highest ranked planning and zoning establishment member, where the highest ranked 5 nominees will compromise the 5-member planning and zoning, and the 6th highest ranked nominee will be the alternate member? Yes.
Yep, that would be included in the motion. So the
Okay.
motion would be to approve, recommend approval of the ordinance with the amendment to the language regarding the alternate.
Since I am chair, I can't make the motion, so
Yeah.
someone's going to have,
Pass the
so
gavel.
if somebody wants that in there, that's why I'm asking, but
Yeah.
just so I can make sure that if anybody else agreed with me.
You can pass the gavel to,
Well, I can pass,
Yes.
I'll pass it to the line. I said,
Okay.
Vice Chair. All right, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve the LDC amendment concerning alternate board members with changing it to read that the highest ranking 5 nominees will compromise the 5-member Planning and Zoning Commission, and the 6th highest ranked nominee will be the alternate member.
There's a motion on the floor by Member Mellon. Wait, no,
Member
Keller. I'm looking at your,
Yeah.
I will
Member
second
Keller.
that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Carried.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you.
I wanted to do that, yeah.
Hey, listen, that's
That's my favorite part.
I was gonna say, hey, you're really vice chair. You should be able to get to do that every so often here. So, okay. Let's see. So that takes care of the motion for that. Miscellaneous project status reports.
the city had the privilege this past week on Wednesday. We hosted the Orlando Economic Partnership. They are an economic development arm in Orange County, Central Florida, that recruits businesses to the area. We got to give them a presentation and give them a bus tour of sites in Ocoee that are shovel-ready for Class A office.
Very good.
First, it's exciting to say we have sites in Ocoee, and they're shovel-ready. So we were able to show them 4 specific sites. We have one that's not quite shovel-ready, then we have the mall. The mall can be built out as a Class A office. It's just not a Class A location. So we described 5 sites to them, took them physically and showed them 4 sites that we have in Ocoee. And looking forward to that. They have a better understanding in Ocoee. They are a little bit more motivated to think of us more often now when they're dealing with these big companies. I just wanted to say we have a build out of a building on Highway 50. It's on the north side. It's across from Chick-fil-A. It was an old bank teller drive-through, and a guy saw an opportunity to build a retail building there, and commended him for it, because I look at properties and it never dawned on me that could be one. I've looked at properties that have ponds and thought, well, we fill in the pond and move it over, I get another, maybe a standalone restaurant. And this it's a 3-unit retail building. It looks pretty nice. It has nice architecture. It has, the first user that went in is a Huey Magoo's, which is a chicken tender. It's an up-and-coming, very popular in Orange in Central Florida, Huey Magoo's. Well, they just now got a Dickey's barbecue. Now, it's a 1,200 square foot space. I've eaten at a Dickey's in Texas. It's a national user, and they never came and talked to us to say, hey, is there what can you do? They found it on their own. And so you're starting to see how this area, it was originally the corner of McGuire and 50, where you had the Starbucks do their standalone. Now it's trending down to the east, and people are seeing and taking notice of the demographics and everything's changing for the better. So we're excited about that. Arden Park's gonna break ground on more phases. They're going. That's nothing new. That's up in the northern area. We've got, just wanted the annexation that Greg presented, and the city had the property next door, and that nice resident came and spoke. The city commission adopted that annexation and directed staff to work with them to give them an access easement. So to kind of update you on that. So, and I'm here if you have any questions. There's a lot going on. I know about it. I don't want to forget. If there's anything exciting, let you know. If you have any questions, see anything going on. Nothing else comes to mind that it's breaking ground that's of anything.
Any new prints yet come in for those buildings there at 50 McGuire, like the taco joint or anything like that?
Interior build out, there's still just the Vita, but you see the sign going up, the dentist, and they tell me any day the Tijuana Flats is supposed to come in with their interior build out.
Yeah, that's a good question about the signs that we're talking about. So I'm using that sign specifically. I was across the street, right, at Old Time Pottery, and I was at McDonald's, and I couldn't read the sign. I had to go a little further down. So that's a 3-foot sign?
No, that's not. That's smaller. They didn't maximize their signage. Do you recall seeing the Vita Ball? I don't recall what it is. But
Yeah, it's tiny.
yes, but for instance, what we've presented to the Old Time Pottery is, now, the old Seacoast Bank in the front sold. We tried to get a restaurant to go there. A urgent care was looking to go there. It ended up selling, which we don't have any sway. We have no control. It's a holistic and massage business is going in there. But we've approached the company that owns the Old Time Pottery Center. You got to understand that McDonald's has restrictions on what can go there. To say you can still have a space next to that mobile gas station. You can build a building out on the road, and you can put a second one on McGuire to get that urban footprint, to get those buildings up on the road. And so as the area develops and changes, it's more walkable, pedestrian. Those signs are more appropriate. But right now, standing alone, it looks really small.
Yeah.
That's where we've got to see how these work, and that's a business that isn't an overlay, and it has requirements, so good comment.
Any other questions?
What about the build-outs on Clark Road? Have you got any interior build-outs on those? The ones across from the mall? Across from Best Buy, next to Kane's Furniture there?
That is owned by a doctor. He has developed a strip center, retail center in Orlando, and he said when he finishes that, he's going to move that concept to his piece. I met with the brokers in Orlando, and They don't have anyone signed up yet.
The one that's already built, right?
Sal's building. Sal has a dance studio and a doctor so far. I'm sorry,
You're
yes.
talking about little masonry building?
He's putting awnings on it. You know, I was like, Sal, you're not gonna just have that blank. I'll sign off, I'll give your building a shell CO. You gotta come back with awnings and it'll look better. I said, so just to keep things going. So you'll see those going up. Cool. And we're redoing the landscaping right in the front of it.
Okay. Additional questions or? All right. Hearing none, I guess we're at adjournment, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Chair Williams. We have a second by Member Mellon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We are adjourned.
Y'all come out to Founder's Day, come see all the Jeeps
Yeah.
Saturday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being at Founder's Day this year and this last year.
I think we make no.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, we're working on Ocoee Taco Company.